So what is the relevance of all this? Well, things are happening in the United States which produce a great deal of angst, disquiet. And rather than looking at the causes of these, which are intrinsic to progress, we blame foreigners. So who is the perfect foreigner to blame? China. Why? Because we have a history of anti-Chinese sentiment. We have a history of a containment of China in the Cold War. It's run by something that calls itself the Communist Party. We imagine that if you've seen one communist, you've seen them all. The people who make these statements about China and communism and so forth have neither met a Chinese or never been to China, nor have they ever met a communist of any kind, except the Vietnamese, who are anti-Chinese and therefore good people, despite their misguided ideology. So there are many factors going into this, but the bottom line is we have a very distorted view of China, inadequate press coverage, biased editorial policies in our media, a political establishment that has made China the enemy of choice. So we are in a very strange position. You can't have an effective policy negotiating position or competition if you misunderstand with whom you are competing. And we fairly fundamentally do. On top of this, you mentioned industrial policy. The Chinese have come up with a very effective pattern of industrial policy, which basically relies on policy banks that lend to support national objectives. You get strange things when you do this to some extent. For example, a Chinese company acquired most of Pirelli, the Italian tire maker, under the Belt and Road Initiative because it was able to portray that as somehow related to the Belt and Road. I find that rather far-fetched, but apparently one of the policy banks was prepared to support it with lending. So you have essentially Deng Xiaoping's idea that if you want to get across the river, you have an objective. You just tell people, you get across the river, I don't care how you do it. If you get there, it'll be worth your while financially. So he came up with the idea of feeling your way across the river with your toes on the rocks. That's what the Chinese do. They announce an objective. Let's say we need an electric economy. We need renewable energy. And they say, and if you invest in these things, we'll back you financially. So the result is, over 50% of the hydroelectric power under construction is in China. 70% of the solar power under construction is in China. Similar pattern for wind power. And of course, China leads in electric vehicles. It also leads in high voltage transmission systems. It leads in the efficiency of electric power production and so forth. I could take other examples because China is now ahead in the vast majority of technologies, something which we don't understand. We imagine export controls can preserve our precious bodily fluids from being drained by the Chinese from us. If you remember Dr. Strangelove, he's alive and well in Washington somewhere, and even if Kissinger is dead.
Well, I was going to say the tendency to blame foreign powers for domestic ills is also something we're seeing a lot in Europe these days as well. But I thought what it was...
You blame the Swedes for all your problems.
well, pointing more towards the Russians these days, but yeah. Well, what was always, for me, unique about American nationalism, though, is that it was unlike the nationalism around the world, because nationalism often, the uglier form, tends to be look towards when was your